Fun.
All right. It will be fun, I promise. Although the first thing I'm doing in fun is pulling you out of the stream. That was Chuck Frank. And some may know his name from Z Frank or from car dealerships. He's had a long and successful career in car dealerships and real estate. But actually, we don't want to talk about any of that today. We want to talk about Chuck Frank, the activist, who if you look at yourself and the power of one and what you can do to make change, that's what we want to talk about Chuck in terms of the relationships and all he's doing with Frankly Talking and things for climate change. So I'm going to welcome Chuck. And I'm also, hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Good. Chuck, you're also, I told you the first one, we just changed the name of the show in honor of you. It's Intercultural Spark now because of how you spark change in others. And I am going to show our new rock and roll. All right, rock and roll. So now we're excited to talk about everything.
Very happy.
Yeah. So, and I did want to talk up to you and this idea of intercultural spark. That's that thing inside each of us that can spark change in the world. And the thing that had really impressed me is you have your website and your newsletter, Frankly Talking, where you are really raising the alarm and bringing awareness to people about climate change. How did you get started with that? And tell me what your vision is for it.
It really began about 25 years ago when my wife and mom and I made a grant to the Sierra Club Foundation. And we sponsored a program to clean up air in Northern Illinois. My wife has asthma, and it seemed like a good use of the funds for us personally in the area, of course. And we pledged to give all the money and or raise it from our friends. So we went to friends and associates and asked them to contribute. We made a matching grant, and we were very successful with that. But being the salesman all my life that I have been, I realized that we were going to be going back to these people and broadening our appeal, and wanted to be sure that they knew every single piece of success that we had. And so when we would win in court or win with the regulators on permits and stuff, we would send out that information, and over time it grew and grew. I should add that I've been fortunate in my career, and I've met a lot of community leaders one way or another, not-for-profit, for-profit, government. And I felt that I could have some degree of influence on convincing them that the climate was changing and we needed to do something about it. So that's been a major theme of the newsletter all this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I was looking at what is adventure travel? Because in your bio on your website, it says that it's adventure travel that has really inspired a lot of your love for the environment. Wait, what did you do? And what did you do what was the most dangerous, scary thing you ever did in adventure travel?
Most scary thing I ever did. Ice climbing, I think, maybe.
Ice climbing? What is ice climbing?
Oh, God, I felt like Arnold Schwarzenegger with the
with like the pick?
Crampons. We were ice climbing frozen waterfalls in Utah.
Oh my God.
That was really a blast. And
wow.
So I've done that. I've done whitewater kayaking down in Utah also, on the San Juan River. And I've backpacked all over the country and in a few places around the world. So I don't know, most dangerous. I don't know.
You don't have any pictures of this. So this is your website, because I know you're also a photographer, which is great. So you've taken pictures. Do you have any pictures of the ice climbing here? That sounds so scary.
I don't have it on the website. Maybe I should.
Look at that. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because of the photography. So this was your undergraduate degree, I understand, is English, which I'm a comparative literature major. So love that as a background, then MBA. But you took 2 years of photography while you were doing that as well. What that strikes me as part of your personality, because it was becoming an expert at something that you want to do. But what was the impetus? Was it a hobby, or did you have a vision for what you might want to do with photography? Because there's some really beautiful, look at that. I mean, that's stunning.
Later in life, I guess, part of my love of photography is just what you're doing, is being able to show other people the beauty of the wilderness and the mountains. And there's some pictures of our canoeing in Canada. And I think there's a couple of pictures there, maybe from Patagonia as well. But I have always just loved taking pictures. In fact, I've been very fortunate in my life. My dad was older when I was born. I'm the youngest, and he was very successful by the time I was 5 or 6, and dragged me and my siblings all over the world. And there's a picture of me and the family in front of the Eiffel Tower. I was 5 years old, and I have my little brownie camera hanging on my neck. And so it goes back all the way. And I just have always loved having these memories, and especially with the wilderness stuff, to be able to share those.
And again, what I thought was so impressive was that a lot of people take things on as a hobby, but I've noticed so for example, when you do something, you're like all in, like you're all in with action, which actually I will look at that. There's 2 different points from that. One is just looking at when you're all in, like even when you were a car dealer, you founded the Car Dealership Association of Dealers. Like, talk about that. What drives you to not only be present, but then to be active in the things that you believe in?
When I became a dealer, most of the franchises that we obtained had already local dealer associations. But when I became a Subaru dealer in about 1982 or 83, right around there, when I got my first dealership, we bought that one as well. It was fairly new franchise around, and there was no local ad association, and I felt that there should be one. And so I started calling the other dealers, and they said, yeah, great. Here I was, 28, 29 years old, and they go, do it. I said, okay, and I did it,
Actually,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, what's so funny about that is on Monday, a friend of mine who's a volunteer coordinator interviewed me on her podcast. And one of the things we were talking about is feedback from volunteers. And I told her, I said, when someone comes to you and says, oh, you should do this, I said, the answer to that always is, that's a great idea. How would you go about it? So that's hilarious. So kudos to the group that said, that's a great idea, Chuck. How would you do that?
I will say that, talking about going
It's
all
funny.
One of the things that I have also recognized is when not to go all in a sense, because it is very easy, especially with not-for-profit, to keep saying yes, 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 you'll do that. And knowing you can do it, but you only have so much bandwidth. And there are some organizations that I am affiliated with where I have an opportunity to go further higher in the organization, but I've said, no, this is where I'm comfortable. This is what I want to do. I've got other obligations. So here's what I can contribute. Take it or leave it. They all take it.
But what's interesting, when you say here's what I can give. I mean, I'm looking at the Jewish Community Centers of Chicago or the YMCA or the Sierra Club. You've been on those boards or involved in some cases, I want to say like 30 years. I mean, so when you're going all in, that's a lot.
My uncle, my family's been involved with the Jewish Community Center since my mom's mom, so my grandma, back in the 20s or something like that. And so my uncle was a life member, and and was my dad's partner. So when I started with the company, my Uncle Armin said, these were the days you didn't say no, sir, at least I didn't. And my uncle said, Chuck, you're going to go over to the Henry Hart Center around the corner here, and you're going to join the board. And I said, yes, sir. And they took me in. I had a brand new minted MBA in finance and accounting from Chicago, and they made me treasurer immediately. And that's where I got started back then in 1976. And I've been affiliated with one board or another for all that time. And my thinking about joining boards, I know a lot of people, and it's perfectly fine, join a board for, their 1, 2, 3 terms, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. For me, that doesn't really work. I'm either in or I'm not, and it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to try and become president of the organization or at all. But I just think you make a commitment, and it's, for me, kind of ongoing, because you believe in the mission and you want that mission to continue. You want to be part of that mission and keep working to try and make it happen.
So there's a couple things interesting about this, about volunteer stuff in general, and then also boards. So one is, it's funny that in 1976 that boards faced the same issue that a lot of boards do now, which is, how do we attract younger people to our organization? That always seems to be constant. But the other thing is how sometimes people get on a board, though, and then they're there because they've made the commitment, but they're not active. And what I see, and this touches on two things, Chuck. It's one thing, it's that making the commitment and staying active, but it's also the spark of how you can spark something, how you connect people, and how it grows. Because right now, and this goes to your involvement with JCC Chicago, as we speak, there are over 200 grandparents in 22 states that are getting writing prompts twice a week on this program called Write Your Stories. And what I find so fascinating about that is, that was like you and I having a brief conversation, I think, when we were visiting Camp Shy, and you're like, oh yeah, have Jerry reach out. And so from that moment, like when you say reach out, I'll be happy to connect you, you 100% mean it. And I mean, look at that though, that little spark and that using your context, this is a huge impact across the country.
Yeah, but that's what that's what it's about. Over the course of my lifetime, anyway, I have met a lot of people, and I keep my address book, my Rolodex, for those of us that are old enough to know what that is, electronically. I get somebody in there, and I don't let them get away. Most of them, I ask if it's okay to send them my newsletter. And it's funny with that, because they will get something from me, every week or every month, and see my face, and whether they read it or not, my name comes across their inbox. And I can go 10, 20 years without seeing somebody, and then run into them somewhere, and they go, oh yeah, I get your newsletter, and feels like I know you, and we've been keeping in touch. And so when I happen to have a reason to call that person and say, hey, I met somebody who could blah, 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 and you guys should talk, or can you help us out? And
I feel like that's an art, though, to maintain that sincerity, and in terms of like when you have business cards with people and it's been so many years, how do you do that? Because it sounds like then you call them, you have a real relationship. How does that work for you?
I in a different way. I'm not quite sure I know how to answer it. For me,
it feels like a gift. I mean, it feels like a real gift.
For me, I think relationships for me are not particularly casual. I'm not saying I don't have casual relationships. I do, but I like people, and I'm interested in people. And I try to find a way to connect with them and let them know that I genuinely care about them. And I think there is something about that resonates with people. What I find really kind of amazing is I'll run into teachers or professors or something that, I was in the class, I was in the first grade, fifth grade, junior high school, and they remember me specifically. And I don't know particularly why, but maybe because my dad was famous here in Chicago with Z. Frank, and maybe I had a little notoriety. I don't know, but people tend to remember me for some reason or another. Generally, I mean, not everybody, of course, but people look at me like, "Who the hell are you?"
Mhm.
I remember.
But
So,
I've noticed also it's how you seem to really care about what other people are doing and then promote what they're doing. Because even when I look at your newsletter, so your newsletter is a combination of issues that you feel passionate about and calls to action, but it's almost always then linking to other articles. So it's recognizing other people's expertise and showcasing that. Do you think that, I mean, talk about that, because that seems to be an approach. You said once, I'd never assume that I'm the smartest person in the room. Like you said, your goal is to get the smartest people in the room.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I don't. There's very few things that I consider myself to be kind of an expert at, and even those things, I know there's people that are way better at it than I am. And so I find that to be successful, I just need to get the resources and provide, people the resources to be successful and, do what we agree is the right thing to do, or when I say right thing, that it's what we feel is the appropriate thing to try and accomplish, and then make sure that person has the authority and the resources to go out and do it and stays in touch. I don't just let them go, never talk to them. People who know me will know that I stay very closely in touch and I watch things very carefully. But as long as people are coloring within the lines, I just kind of stand back and let them do it. And when there is reason to praise them, I look for reasons to praise people. Because they appreciate it, and it's very motivating, and it sends a message that this is the right way to go. Keep going, keep doing it.
I know. I noticed I was skimming through, like people do. I was skimming through your Facebook page before we talked, and one thing I noticed when you talk about supporting people is your family must love you, because I feel like everyone's like, look, we're doing this fundraiser, but there was a list of them, of people that are really trying to do causes, and you consistently were supporting people that you knew that were raising money for different causes. It was everything from, I think there was immigration, there was probably environment. It was a real wide range, but it sounds like it's like the idea of yes and. In improv, they talk about yes and it feels like that's a spirit that drives how you operate.
I've had a lot of people that support my causes over a lifetime, and generally I will support people that I know. It may be $50 and maybe $25 or $100 or $200, but depending on the cause and how connected I might be with it. But I like to encourage people that are trying to do good. I want to go back a second about trying to praise people. There was an incident. I think we all have these little poignant moments in our lives, these vignettes. And one of them for me was as a senior in high school. I won't go into the details, but I'll give you the principle. I got called to the essentially the principal's office, and I was I thought a model student, and I was figuring, oh, he's gonna praise me for a great career in high school and tell me good luck in college. And I got there, and it was for a really minor infraction, something. And I'm thinking to myself, really? And I went away and I said, this became a principle for me. Is when you're called to the boss's office, the principal, whoever it might be, it shouldn't produce dread, right? And I think that is oftentimes what people feel, like, come see me. Oh God, I did something wrong.
Sure.
I like to bring people in and praise them, so that when I call them the next time, they might think, oh, I'm getting praised again. And maybe they will be, or maybe they won't. But I don't want people thinking that anytime I call them, it's going to be to tell them bad news.
Sure. You're not going to tell us what your infraction was, though?
I could. I was late one day for no particular reason, and the woman, you have to sign in and the woman that was there said, "You got to put a reason." I said, "There's no reason. I just slept late." And she told the principal I was mouthing off to her or something.
Oh, no. But I love that idea of noticing things. It's like that practice random acts of kindness,
Yeah.
that idea of, I will do that in public. Even if I see someone, like if you have a good thought that comes to your head, a compliment, I always like to share it.
Yeah.
Speaking of sharing, for anyone who's live or even after the fact, so if you are welcome to say hello so we know who's here, just leave something in the comments. You can ask questions as well as we're chatting. So for anyone who's live or after the fact, you can as well. But please do leave comments or say hello in the comments. So
I want to go back to something else that we talked about, and it's the volunteering and accepting roles and all. At one point in my career, there was a reason for me to put together a list of life's rules, so to speak. It was primarily for business, but most of those pertained to life as well. And there was one of them in there that I think pertains to what we're talking about right now. And one of those rules was take care of your family and take care of your health, because without both of those, nothing else works. And I really firmly believe that, for all the reasons. I mean, if you're off the track with either one of those, it's so distracting and so emotionally draining that it prohibits you from performing well in anything else that you do. You're so distracted, you're so emotional. And the other side of it is doing both in the right way is extremely important. I was starting a new business. Well, my daughter was starting a new business, and I am a minority partner with her, very minority. She runs it. But we went to the indoctrination, and at the end of the week of indoctrination, I said to the instructor, "What is the one thing that is the most important thing, or the opposite, takes down a business?" And I thought the guy was going to say running out of cash or bad reputation or something like that. He said, "The one thing that we find that is most common in people's success is family support." And I went, "Really?"
Oh, interesting.
And
actually, speaking of which, yeah, that's from Jana. Hi, Daddy. Thanks for always being such a great role model. That's great. Yeah, Nicole is here as well. Just want to say how lucky I feel to have grown up with such a great role model.
That's nice. Having the love and appreciation of your kids is certainly a very rewarding and satisfying element of life. We spend a ton of time with our family.
I believe too, in the olden days, I feel like in the olden days, it was the idea of that business and personal were separate. There was this idea that they were just these separate worlds. Oh, well, it's just business. But I really believe that if you're a person and you have, sort of your core identity and who you are, that's who you are no matter where you are. And that when those align, I feel like you're so much more powerful.
For me, that's true. I do, at some degree, try to keep an arm's length relationship with my businesses and my employees. But on the other hand, I think you spend so much time with people, and I find that if you take care of your staff and the people you work with, your suppliers, bankers, and all, you get much more in the long run. I mean, sure, you can, I don't want to use the word, well, you could cheat, but try to take as much for yourself out of the current circumstances. But over time, I don't think that is the best strategy. And I always felt that I'm successful because of the people that are around me and are doing most of the work, actually. and that I should share that with not only them, but with our community. And when I was a car dealer, I tried to support the local businesses and the YMCA. Even though we're Jewish, we gave to the Y because a lot of our customers went there. And I just thought that they support us, we should support them and the Little League teams and all of that.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking now going back to where we started, which was the Frankly Talking in the newsletter. You mentioned speaking at a school once where you were talking about you set the seeds and then you grow. And remember they said, wait, how many years? So tell me more about that. And then how do you balance, kind of short-term and long-term goals?
Well, my daughter was at Lewis and Clark College, and finally I got another environmentalist in the family, thank goodness. Not that they all aren't, but she was an active one and studied environmental studies. And I met her professors and offered, at the time I was on the Sierra Club National Board, and I offered to come in if they wanted and talk about environmental experiences. And they took me up on that a couple of times. I think 3 times I went to do classes for them. And one time we were doing like a panel, and I was talking about how at one point we had planted a little seed, and over time it grew and grew into a very big program, and how big events like the Wilderness Act of 1963 and the Clean Air Act and all these other big pieces of legislation can take decades to build the constituency to get them passed. And I was trying to excite them and encourage them to get started, right? And to be patient and persistent. And afterwards, the message that seemed to come through was, holy cow, does it take a long time? We want things done now. And it was kind of a discouraging message. So that's another one of my rules. When you say things, you just oftentimes have no concept of the impact that it has on people. You're trying to give a compliment and somebody else takes it as a, resentful thing, as a put down something. And that happens all the time. And you don't even know it a lot of the times.
It's almost a gift when you do know. That's a really strong tenet of intercultural communications, that impact or that intention doesn't always equal impact. Absolutely. And so sometimes you can state your intention, but that doesn't excuse you if you end up having a negative impact. So it's it's understanding that.
Yeah.
So speaking of impact, then what is your next goal when you're looking with Frankly Talking and environmental, the work that you're doing now? What's a goal that you're working toward now, either there or elsewhere?
Well, I mean, we are in a bad state of affairs with climate change, and we're already obviously seeing some pretty significant impacts in hurricanes and fires and water, flooding and drought. I was watching the news, I think a night or two ago, and they said, here's a new word for your nomenclature. And they said, environmental refugees. I know that term for 10 years already or longer. And we need to take action quickly and enormously. And I just am trying to help encourage that to happen. We need to get off of fossil fuels as fast as possible. Hopefully we can get pretty close by the end of the decade. I know there's a lot of people that don't believe it. Technology is there. The question is the political will to do it and the financing. And I know a lot of people say, oh, it's going to cost trillions of dollars to do this, and we don't have that kind of money. I never looked at it that way. I always look at it, it may cost $2 trillion, but think about how much money that means going into the economy, how many people are going to have jobs, how many businesses are going to have profit, and how much of that profit is going to be able to go back into not-for-profits to support our communities. So to me, it's not a cost. And quite frankly, I will say this, I've done this for 20, 30 years. challenge anybody to show me any proof, any study that says when you do the right thing for the environment, it isn't the right thing for the economy. It is always the right thing for the economy.
Well,
It's
and I
not
just
necessarily the right, and when I say it's not necessarily the intention, but it is the outcome.
Well, and so people can sign up for your newsletter at franklytalking.com. But I was also along those lines, I just had this idea, probably like some people do, that, well, big business is always against it because of the economic thing. But in reading some of the articles, it looks like a lot of big businesses are already making this move.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, Debbie said hi.
Thanks, honey. Yeah. We've seen the writing on the wall for, I think, 3 reasons. Strictly economic. They can see that their business model will not continue on profitably.
Well, and people expect it. People want, that's the thing now, especially millennials, where people want to know that the company that they're buying from, that their values ally with personal values. That's much stronger than I think ever before.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of empirical data that shows that companies that are aligned not only with the right thing environmentally, but with their employees,
yes, absolutely. Yep.
Are actually more profitable. I think that was the second reason. I think that the consumers are demanding it. And the third reason is people got to go home and look at their kids and their grandkids in the eye and say,
everything's going to be okay.
And all those kids saying, what are you doing, Grandpa?
Yeah. So I want to show this broader view of where you are, because wait, is that a picture of you with Michael Jordan in the background there? You said that everyone you meet, you always stay connected with. So are you guys friends? Like, how do you know him? What was that from?
I was very fortunate in the fact that Michael Jordan lived in Highland Park, right?
Okay.
Where I live, and I owned the local Chevy dealer. And when Michael first came to town in like 87, 88, something like that, whatever it was, the local Chevy Dealer Association, not when I started, that was already here, reached out to him, and he became our spokesperson, or a spokesperson, but the main one, obviously. And Michael always honored his agreement with the association, which was really wonderful, at a very reasonable price that we could afford when he was big time with Gatorade. Nike, everything else. He was making fortunes, and he was still doing our ads. Part of our contract was that he got a Chevrolet, and so I'm the local dealer, and when it came time to deliver that car, he would come in and he'd see me, and when he'd come in for service, believe it or not, he did come in for service himself once or twice. Yeah. Not having his staff people do it, but he was always really, really gentleman to me. And once in a while, we would run into each other around town, and he always called me Charles. He would say, "Hello, Charles, how are you?" "Hi, Michael, how are you?" We were at a restaurant one time, Debbie, you'll remember this, and he was on the other side of the restaurant. She said, "Don't you go over there," because I'm inclined to do that kind of stuff, and I didn't. I think that it's important, for me at least, to try and allow celebrities to live their lives and not have people always coming up and disturbing them.
Although it sounds like he probably would have just opened his arms and said hello too. Well, thank you so much, Chuck, for being here, because like I said, and it's obviously come out even more and more as we've been talking, that each of us has this idea of intercultural spark. We each have a spark inside of us. Everyone does, regardless of their age, of their background, no matter how old you are, whatever your background is, you can contribute something. And it was just so impressive to see how the number of boards that you're on, or even just the phrase I took from Chuck's Rules for Life, which was always be the one who wants to have the ball. Because so many times we were like, oh, I'll let someone else do it. And you really are just an example of like, no, like I can't assume someone else will do it. So I'm going to do it, while also giving space and bringing others up with you who do want to be involved. So
I got to give credit where credit is due. That came from an article, an interview with Michael Jordan. So he was the one that said that. And I said, that makes sense to me. That's kind of how I feel. Is there time for one more story?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Talking about people remembering you. In 2002, I think, or 2003, there was this guy running for office here in Illinois, and he was a state senator. He was running for U.S. Senate, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, have you met this guy? Do you know him?" Knowing that I do political contributions because I want to support people that support my beliefs. And I said, I've heard of him, but I don't really know him. I've seen him around once or twice. How about having lunch with me and him? I said, okay, knowing there would be an ask. And it was Barack Obama. And he was running.
Oh my gosh.
State senator. He was running for U.S. Senate. It was the fall before the election. So he got elected in 2004. So it must have been September 2003. And we had lunch, and he asked me to make this contribution, and I went, okay. I did. And sometime later, he ran, not too much later, I mean, during the election process, he ran into my mother, who was at a fundraiser, and she introduced herself, and he looked at her and said, "Are you related to Chuck Frank?" And
oh my gosh.
My son. And they made a connection. And I ran into him occasionally. Well, right after he made the nomination, the formal announcement that he was running for the Senate, I was with my daughter, and we went to a fundraiser, and we were about 20, 30 feet back from the stage, and everyone was standing, and he comes out and everyone's trying to hug him. Again, I don't like to do that. I don't press myself, but he turned and he sees me, and there were like 3 or 4 people in between us. And he's a big guy. He just takes 2 steps. He walks up to me, grabs me like this, with a bear hug. And he says, "Hi, how are you? How's your mother?" And everybody is standing around like, who is this guy, right? And you asked me, why do people remember you? I don't know.
I think you can't fake a good heart, and you can't fake making other people feel as though they've been seen, that they've been seen for the value that they feel they're bringing. And I think that's a gift. I think that I'm going to say that's what I think comes as part of it. Well,
yeah. Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk. My family's listening. They know I love to talk. So
I love it. Thank you, family, for watching. Thank you for everyone to say hello. And again, if people have questions after the fact, I'm happy to pass those on. Chuck, I'm going to remove you from here. We're going to end our show. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week. Next Wednesday, 1:00. Every Wednesday's at 1. We have Intercultural Spark. Next week, we have Dr. Narketa Key, and we will see you then. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Just so grateful for you, both during the broadcast and everyone watching after. Thanks. Bye-bye.